All right, we get to start this morning off with a bang, and I am so pleased to introduce that we are going to have a fireside chat on navigating turbulent times with a very distinguished guest. So I'd like to invite FSC's Executive Director, Noel Baldwin, who's not the distinguished guest, distinguished, not a guest, up here. And we'd like to also welcome Federal Minister of Jobs and Families, Patty Hajdu, the Honourable Patty Hajdu, to come give a few remarks. She's going to give a few remarks and then have a conversation with Noel. And we're really looking forward to hearing about what it takes to navigate change and lead. So thank you so much, Minister.
Well, good morning, everyone, and what a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you, Tricia and Rob, for the invitation, I believe, and also I'm looking forward to the less formal part of this chat with Noel. I was just speaking with Noel, and I was saying that I much prefer fireside chats. That's where you get to sort of the curious part of all of the work that you do, and I think that's where I want to start today, which is with a huge thank you. I know that this room is full of people that are working in the space of skills training and education, policy, and the work that you do is now more critical than ever, although I would argue that it's always been critical. I also just want to say that it's not my first rodeo as the Minister of Employment and Labour. I was the Minister of Employment and Labour in 2017, and I had the honor of working with then Minister Morneau on this very concept of Future Skills. And I remember being at the announcement when Future Skills was launched. And in those days, it was sort of a heady idea by then a government that was really taking skills development seriously and trying to project, as difficult as I think you all know that is, where we might be going as an economy and where we might be going in terms of the future of skills. I think we all knew digitization and AI and innovation was going to play a huge role in the work of the future, and the future has arrived. Here we are, although it continues, as we all know. And so I would say that there's a huge difference between 2017 and now. Obviously, we have a different Prime Minister, but I think we're in a very dramatically different time. And yet there's elements of this time that feel very familiar, especially for a small town Northern Ontario girl like me. And although many folks are, in fact, today waking up to the news of job loss in sectors that we even 5 years ago, 10 years ago thought were permanent and solid sectors of our industries and our country and our economic landscape, I can tell you that huge sector collapse is dramatic, it's terrifying, it's heartbreaking, and in some cases, communities cannot recover. And I think that we all need to start from this place of honesty in the work that we're doing. Canadians are terrified. And Canadians that are losing their jobs are the most terrified, perhaps, today. But certainly Canadians that are looking at that and worrying about what that might mean for themselves, for their families, for their children, are also deeply worried. And although we talk about innovation and AI with enthusiasm, and as we should, because there are all kinds of really cool things happening, for the average Canadian on the street who is not immersed in the world of innovation, technology, it's actually really scary. And it feels, for many people, like an existential threat. Even one of my sons, who is in communications, is contemplating going back to school because he's worried that his school of writing, his profession of writing and communications is rapidly being overtaken by the use of AI. And I would agree with him, because I am a rampant user of AI. I use it in many ways in politics throughout the campaign. AI helped me hone a message, helped me rapidly write fundraising letters, helped me rewrite tweets and narratives in a speed that I couldn't believe. And that is something that in previous elections, I really struggled to do because it was very time-consuming. Not anymore. And so that's just one small example of how innovation and technology is disrupting professions that felt really solid even just 5 years ago. And so where are we today as a government? Well, we have a new prime minister that is seized with the reality that we are at a hinge moment, not just with our relationships with our largest trading partner, but certainly as we look at the rapid evolution of technology and the job displacement that it may result in. And we're asking those kinds of questions that I think Canadians are expecting us to ask, which is how do we adapt our workforce to this disruptive world? And what are the future skills that Canadians will need to fuel a growing economy? And so meeting this moment means that we need to invest in ourselves as a country and invest in the hard infrastructure that in many ways has lagged for a long time. And I can tell you that there is opportunity in this. There is opportunity in making sure that Canada can diversify who we trade with, can actually grow the kinds of infrastructure that's going to help us trade with each other. Still a problem, if you can believe it, after all these years, and make sure that Canadians have not only the skills to be able to seize that work, but the spirit of adaptation that's going to allow them to continually evolve. We also face an enormous generational transition. 600,000 skilled trades workers are going to retire by 2031, another 150,000 by 2033. And that's 750,000 of Canadians worth of experience walking out the door. My other son is a skilled tradesperson, two very different boys, a crane operator who works in skilled trades. And I can tell you that he is the youngest person on the job site currently at 29 as a crane operator. In fact, most people that he's working with are much older than he is. And it is very hard continues to be hard to attract people to these very lucrative jobs. So part of the solution is to invest in skills trades training and partner with unions and other folks that are doing fantastic work in training people and attracting diverse people to the trades, but it's not the only answer. We also have to be sure that we're supporting people when we get to the workforces that involve skilled trades. They can be lonely, isolating, difficult, and especially if you're not a traditional member of that community. And skilled trades unions have been working very hard to attract new people, but we have to work just as hard to keep people in those sectors. I can also tell you that we've done some work and continue to work with colleagues across provinces and territories on labor mobility. But if I can just tell you what labor mobility looks like in real life, that means that you go where the job goes. And that means that you leave your home and you leave your children and you leave your family so that you can work in another location. And it doesn't mean that that job that you're going to is your permanent job of the future. So I think we have to be really thoughtful when we're talking about concepts like labor mobility, that we're not minimizing the impact that it has on individuals and human beings. Nonetheless, we need tradespeople, and there are many great jobs that are closer to home, like power line technicians, millwrights, auto service techs, and more. And so we invest nearly $1 billion every year to support apprenticeships through loans, tax credits, grants, EI benefits, and the Red Seal program. Plus, we'll be investing $382 million over 5 years and $56 million ongoing for workforce alliances and sectoral workforce investments funds. And we're working with apprentices, employers, unions, and training groups, but this is going to take an all-hands-on-deck approach. Governments across the board, provincial and federal, are going to need to work together with all of you in the room to make sure that we actually have a tangible, seamless approach for employees and for new workers, and for employers, to be honest. We also have talked a lot about the barriers that prevent Canadians from entering non-traditional sectors, but I can tell you that it is not just non-traditional sectors that have a hard time. It's as broad as group as women. And that's why the National Child Care Program is such a critical component to ensuring that we keep everybody as productive as possible. I often say to my colleagues that childcare is not a social program, it's an economic program. It means that people can continue to learn, they can continue to grow, they can continue to seek new opportunities to fully engage in the workplace without worrying about quality childcare. And as a mom myself, a single mom at the time, when I was raising my 2 young boys, I can tell you that nothing stops you in your tracks like not having quality care. It can be a really challenging space to navigate for moms or families who don't have quality care. And even for families that have more means, it is often the decision point about whether or not a woman will continue her career trajectory, and oftentimes very lucrative career trajectory, if she can't access quality childcare. So at the heart of all of this work is the Future Skills Center. As I said, an idea that was born in 2017 and built for the moment that we're in now. And since the launch, it's very exciting to hear that you've partnered with 1,000 employers, 2,000 organizations across 20 sectors, and led 400 plus innovation projects, and helped 105,000 Canadians access skills training and jobs. And it's a hub for that kind of innovation, experimentation, and dialogue that I think we're going to need even more than ever. We also need to tap into the Future Skills Center for those really, I think, challenging, pernicious problems that continue to plague us across the country. I talked about sector collapse, but I also want to talk a little bit about labor negotiations. And it's been really interesting to me as the Minister of Employment and Labor to hear some of the challenges that labor unions are facing and employers are facing that are deeply connected to the insecurity around changing jobs. And I'm speaking really frankly with you right now, but some of the most challenging labor negotiations actually don't have a lot to do with wages and pension. Obviously, everybody's concerned about what they're going to be compensated and how safe their workplaces are and what their financial security looks like after retirement. Those are all really normal things to negotiate about, and they're usually really solvable things. But what's really challenging in some, not all, 97% of federal negotiations we arrive at smoothly. But for some of these labor negotiations that are a little stickier, it is actually about the future of work. It's about what kinds of transformation is happening in the industry, who is going to be displaced, a huge fear about displacement, and a huge fear about the kinds of skills that are necessary to adapt to the transforming industry. And so I'm really hoping that all of you are going to be thinking through the lens of labor stability in the work that you're doing. Because I actually think that the more confident that workers are in being able to continue to adapt as their industry transforms with more automation, more AI, more digitization, the more stable labor relations will be in this country. People are terrified. People are terrified that the machines are going to take their jobs. And unfortunately, that's a difficult thing to negotiate about. And so we're going to have to be really thoughtful as a group about how we support workers in sectors that are experiencing huge disruption as a result of digitization. Finally, I'll just say that although there are some, and I heard your earlier speaker talk about this, some significant flashing red lights around youth unemployment, around a rising unemployment rate, I would say that there are pockets of this country that are deeply in need of employment. And so we're going to also have to sort out how we balance this very delicate dance between regions that need new people, regions that are struggling to keep up with the demand for jobs and the demand for workers, and how we actually get that balance right. And so the federal government is thinking through that right now. There are a number of small tools that we've launched in the last few years, including in my own region, that look at immigration more as a revenue accelerator. Things like the Northern and Rural Immigration Pilot that matches newcomers to Northern Ontario with quality jobs in sectors that could use a new person. Things like the Global Talent Strategy that allow companies to unlock that next level of growth by using qualified, great talent from other countries, being competitive in the race for researchers and educators. And I think we have some work to do to get that balance right, but I know that that work is underway, and I'm very grateful to be here today. Looking forward to the conversation with Noel. Thank you.
Apparently this is the moderator chair.
Okay.
So, Yeah, I got to sit in the right chair. Thank you, Minister.
Thanks, Noel.
Yeah, that was a really thoughtful way to open today, and I think the challenge that the call to action I think that you've given us to have open and honest and sober but hopeful conversations is a really good note to start on, right? Over the last couple of years, we've tried to emphasize both sides of the coin, the challenges that are in front of us, but the opportunities that are there. So thank you very much for that. I should have come up and done an introduction, a proper introduction for you, but maybe I'll do a little bit of that in the first question because this is your second tour through this portfolio. It's a little different than last time. You've got families now. But also you've had some other portfolios in the meantime. You were the Minister of Health during the pandemic. You spent several years at Indigenous Services, which is always meaningful but challenging work to do. And so I wonder, kind of thinking about those experiences and your career before politics, I mean, what does it mean to have a resilient workforce in this moment and one that will continue to be resilient as we navigate these changes over the next few years? What are some of the things that you think are markers of that kind of resilience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the question of the hour, isn't it? It's look, I think I said in my remarks that there's some serious warning signals. Unemployment rates of youth are higher than we've seen in a very long time, and same with adults. And there's I think that even more disturbing, there's a real fear out there. And when people are afraid, it can really actually immobilize people. People can get very immobilized. I'm also really worried about the sort of, I would say, deep anxiety of youth in particular. I almost use the word hopelessness. I don't think that's necessarily true. But there are some youth out there that I've spoken to that are feeling very overwhelmed, not just for the future of their own particular circumstances. Work is very important. It's a huge piece of our identity and purpose, but what the future of the world looks like. And so when I speak to youth, there's a deep grief and fear, and that can be really immobilizing as well. And so I think that there are opportunities out there that are paid, and I think there's opportunities that are unpaid. But I think the answer I give my young people is that there are ways to make the world better in our own small circle. And sometimes we want to heal the world, stop the wars, stop climate change, make healthier communities, reduce racism. There's a whole bunch of things that kids want to do. But sometimes we just have to start in our own small circle. And the interesting thing about that is when you start in those small places, you actually make new connections and you gain new skills. So I think about all the years that I took my kids to the Thunder Bay Shelter House to serve a monthly meal with a faith organization we were involved in, and just the experiences that they received through that, of working with difficult people, of understanding mental health and illness, of being able to prepare food, just little things that they gained through that experience of what community means, of what collective action means, that were intrinsic skills that I didn't even realize at the time, was one of the things they would gain from that experience. And I think there's opportunities through some of the contemplated programs like the Canada Green Corps, I can't remember the exact name, sorry, the Youth Environmental Corps. I met with the BC Environmental Corps last week, and just to hear that hopefulness in young people's voices as they described the projects that they were undertaking in their communities, very community-driven. Things like fire prevention in small towns, helping homeowners clear brush around their homes, restoring habitat for fish in small creeks, cleaning up forested areas. So I think we can do things. I just think we have to be creative and we have to listen to how we are going to support young people through this time. Because that ultimately, if our young people lose hope and disconnect, that's where it gets really, really challenging. Bringing people back from disconnection is a lot harder than keeping them connected.
That's right. That's right, absolutely. And showing the pathways between some of those things they do that bring them connectedness and then out into what they may do for work and as a career. You talked about in your speech about some of the areas where we've got really high demand for people that we're having trouble meeting. Skilled trades is one. Healthcare is another, right? We need more nurses and PSWs. What are some of the things that you feel excited about or optimistic about that are going to help us build those pipelines? And I thought your reflection on mobility was really important, that you have to think about the impact of people moving around, but that's also not a way that the pie grows bigger, right? We need more people. And I wonder if there's some things that you're looking forward to potentially to build some of those pipelines.
Well, I think some of the provinces are doing I mean, listen, we're the federal government, so we don't actually have the ability to shape minds at JK to 12. And so we work in a federation. But I would say that there's some really exciting work happening provincially to reintegrate at least access and contact to the trades within more junior years. I think when we start talking about skilled trades after high school, it's in a way, I mean, it's never too late. Listen, it's never too late, but it's in a way like a bit of a U-turn for a lot of people. But if you integrate it into classrooms and you use a model where people are exposed to opportunities and thinking about careers that are broader than what in my generation was de rigueur, which is go to university. If you went to anywhere but university, you were just a second-class citizen. And there was a huge stigma attached to going to the trades. And so that stigma ends by normalizing it, by making sure that people understand that it's a really good career path. That, I mean, look, my son's 29 years old, he owns a house, he's had a house for 3 or 4 years. Like, that's a story. It's Northern Ontario, mind you. It might be a bit more difficult here, but it's a story that is not uncommon in skilled trades, because they're really good paying. Often in many cases, they're unionized. And you can rise through the ranks fairly quickly. But it has to be normalized, and it has to be, kids have to be exposed to not just what the trade is, but what the opportunities are and where it can take you. And so I really want to applaud provinces who are looking at how to reintegrate that into sort of the 0 to 12 kind of landscape, and talking about the value and dignity of building things and fixing things, and many of those skills are deeply technical. I mean, I'll just give you an example of, I'm going to have to draw on my son again, but, crane operation is really digital.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not looking out the window and figuring it out. You are also doing that, but you're using, digital tools to, very specifically measure, lift loads, etc. I can't do it. It's very deeply technical. But, I mean, that is just something I think a lot of young people might not conceptualize in terms of what a crane operator is doing every single day. And so when young people are exposed to what an actual trade looks like and what it actually produces at the end, and the value from an employment perspective, I think it changes the narrative. But it also takes all of us to destigmatize the trades. It's for a very long time been treated as the sort of poor cousin of university, and that's an attitude problem. It's not even a reality. It's just an attitude problem.
Yeah, and those attitudes take different tools to try to shift, right? I'm gonna take a bit of a turn. I want to talk about AI just for a minute here. My daughter asked me the other day if I do AI, and I didn't really know how to answer that question. And I said, not.
Were you honest?
Yeah. Well, I said I try to avoid it. But it's
I use it every single day in ChatGPT. Actually, Paul Thompson's here, my deputy. I'm pretty sure he's sick of me telling him how ChatGPT actually has a better answer.
Yeah, that might be something that he may not love.
But I guess my point in this is it's coming. And if we don't adapt as human beings and as departments and as researchers to how we can actually use these tools to, listen, there's all sorts of questions that are sort of beyond my scope of practice, like data integrity. And if you want to talk about all that stuff, AI sovereignty, call Evan, because he'll be thrilled to talk to you about it. for a long time.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is if there's a viable tool that makes us do our work better, then why are we avoiding it? And how do we figure out how to integrate that in a way that has integrity? And obviously that is, evidence-based. Like, you don't want to be spewing out garbage, but you do want to be able to use tools that can make you better at your job. And I think that's part of the challenge with AI, is if we talk about it as a replacement, of course it's terrifying, and it is going to replace some things. We know this. But if we talk about it as a performance enhancer, and we figure out how we integrate it into our workplaces as a performance enhancer and teach people the skills that they're going to need to use it with integrity and with confidence, then I think that it's actually a really valuable tool. That's how I'm using it. And listen, I'm doing all the things. Obviously, I'm not running cabinet documents through AI. But for something like a fundraising letter to my Liberal constituents in my riding, why would I spend an hour and a half crafting the perfect letter when I can give it like 3 prompts, under the file that I've saved for Liberal propaganda, is what I call it. We all have it, right? But, essentially you write your letter and, it comes out 2 seconds later and then you tweak it. So kids are doing this. It's not learning. It's actually using a tool to do what we all talk about all the time, which is efficiency. And the way that we use the tool is the really important thing, right? So the integrity of how we use these tools and the ability to understand whether or not, the tools are drawing from evidence-based resources and how you check that, and whether or not there's falsities, and how you optimize that tool to use it with integrity is the question. But we can't avoid it. It is here. And so I know I'm not in education, but I've spoken to teachers who are grappling with trying to figure out how they teach in a time where there is a tool that can write your 2,000-word essay. How do you teach? Curious to hear if teachers are what they're thinking about all that.
I'll just point out one difference between AI and humans. I didn't actually give you a good prompt, and you gave a fantastic answer. Minister, we're running close to time. I know you've got another really important meeting with your cabinet colleagues coming up. Is there a final reflection you'd like to leave us with as we go about our work for the rest of the day today?
Final reflection. Well, I would just say that everybody matters in this economy, and I think you are the room that actually understands that there are a bunch of people in this country who have been deeply left behind. And I'm reflecting on my time as Minister of Indigenous Services in particular. And yet there's such promise and opportunity in those communities. There's such promise and opportunity in communities, entire communities of people who often feel voiceless and nameless, but who have great ideas and great potential. And so, it's difficult sometimes to dig into those spaces where people have a harder time accessing the internet, have a harder time participating in events, have a harder time getting to school, for Lord Pete's sake. I can't believe we still have that problem, but we do. And yet there's tons of innovation and tons of new tools that actually can accelerate that work and make sure that everybody actually feels like they have true potential. When people have potential and know it, and when they have a feeling that they have purpose in this place, it's not just good for our economy. It doesn't just help grow our productivity, but it actually creates better, safer, more cohesive communities. And so the work that you're doing is actually around protecting democracy and protecting, our country to actually be united. We talk a lot about Canada Strong, but there's a whole bunch of people that have never really felt like they have been seen by this country or by the leaders of this country. And so our job, I think, as leaders is to make sure that we're asking ourselves, who's not at the table, who's not served by my program, how do I actually get to a better place with the folks that need it the most?
Thank you. That's a fantastic synthesis, both of what we're trying to do at the Future Skills Center and what we're trying to do today. I want to thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing your time and your thoughts with us, giving us a great start to a busy day of work and talking about how we make sure that no one's left behind. Please, everyone, give me a warm round of applause for Minister Hajdu.
Thank you.